Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming the program author Craig Stellpflug, and Craig is the author of One Man, One Woman. Craig, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show, Don. I've heard a lot of great things happening here, and it's a privilege to be with you today.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, I'm recently retired from a medical clinic. Kind of the short story, I was adopted, a crippled kid with polio challenges. I grew up in Hawaii. I was raised Catholic by a naval commander, eldest of 8 kids. Ended up in East Texas with a little ranch and some kids. Then my wife of 26 years died from ovarian cancer, and I've recently remarried and moved to the Pacific Northwest to be near some of my grandkids.
So tell us about this book.
Well, this book is called One Man, One Woman, and it's about learning how to biblically handle some of the many relationship challenges we face as imperfect beings living in an ever-corrupting world. One Man, One Woman is a book about what was in God's mind as he made the first man and the first woman, and subsequently how we can discover the closest relationship possible with both God and spouse.
So who did you write your book for specifically?
Well, I wrote this book for married couples, particularly the young married, and also the young person considering marriage. And this is any person, Christian or not, that questions the institution of marriage, because while God's word and will remain unchanging, our society is in crisis. Sexual identity is becoming a matter of subjective preference, and it's a choice rather than a birthright and a blessing now. Traditional marriage is weakening. It's under fire, and it shows in our divorce rates, which are accelerating. Christian marriage values are succumbing to a minority view, but God had a plan, and in the beginning, marriage was part of that plan, and this book is about that plan.
Now, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you could say runs throughout the book?
One Man, One Woman is about learning how to biblically handle so many of the relationship challenges we face as imperfect beings living in an imperfect world. We deal with some of the real-life issues of divorce and remarriage and sexuality, homosexuality, adultery, fornication, even pornography.
Now, if you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
I would have to sum it up in one short statement. This is God's original design for marriage. And this marriage is about the greatest love story ever. It's a love that God had for humankind. And marriage is simply a microcosm of that love story.
Now, if you could compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
Well, that's easy. There's someone I admire named Willard F. Harley, Jr. He's a clinical psychologist, and he wrote a book called His Needs, Her Needs, and the subtitle is Building an Affair-Proof Marriage. Dr. Harley, of course, details a lot of practical advice, and I do something similar in this book, but I do it with more detailed scriptural foundation.
So why are you publishing a Christian book on marriage?
Well, I'm a student of Biblical Greek, and I've pastored many churches through the years. I've taught lots of Bible studies, Sunday schools. I've held a lot of biblical seminars. I've also been a marriage counselor and a marriage mentor. In my book, One Man, One Woman is actually a culmination of decades of teaching on marriage and relationships.
So tell us about your secular career.
Well, in the late 80s into the early 90s, I studied in a field called neurodevelopment. And neurodevelopment is how the brain develops, what goes wrong with it, and most importantly, how to fix it. And neurodevelopment disorder would be like ADHD, autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. So in those studies, I also became a nutritionist. And consequently, a lot of what I did as a neurodevelopmentalist centered around nutrition. And this career actually evolved into cancer nutrition. And for the last 7 years before I retired, I was at a medical clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona, doing just that, cancer nutrition.
So what's been your most rewarding experience since publishing your book?
Well, the most rewarding experience would have to be an amazing and positive impact on my marriage. Now, my marriage was already great before writing this book, but just working and reworking these passages from the Bible and refining the messages that each chapter holds in this book brought a new depth to my love and the care for my wife and my family.
Now, did your environment or upbringing play any major role in your writing?
Well, my former marriage of 26 years ended in the death of my spouse, and my dad's faithfulness in his marriage until death did him part. Both of those helped lay a foundation of principle. It set a moral compass, if you will, that opened my heart to take a stand on marriage. And I want to tell you, though, neither one of those marriages was easy. My mother died from dementia, and the last few years of that were a severe challenge to my dad, yet he stayed faithful in that marriage. My wife succumbed to ovarian cancer, and some of those years were not very easy for me. But those two things really set the foundation for this book, the faithfulness that you can have in a marriage.
If someone were to write a book about your life, what would the title be?
Oh, that's an interesting title. It's actually an easy one for me to answer because I say it all the time. I say, life's an adventure, buckle up. And I say this because I've been extremely privileged to have experienced so much in my life. I'm 56 years old, and I've seen good, bad, and indifferent. I've had lots of travel, adventure, love, loss, danger, peril. I've ridden on a nuclear submarine. I've worked on and with cutting-edge technology. I've been a part of foreign missions. I've ministered in the barrios of the Patagonia of Argentina. I've been shot at close range. I've been hidden from rebels in a foreign country, and I've dined with presidents and their wives and with senators and with congressmen and other politicians. I've lost an adult child, a teenage brother, a mother, a wife, and I've witnessed childbirth and death. And so there's so many things to savor in life. I just have to say, life is an adventure. Buckle up, because you certainly don't want to get thrown out of the chair in this adventure.
So how would you describe your writing style?
Well, my writing style here is it's both topical and analytical, and it's research-based. But the thing I like to do that makes it interesting is I like to pepper things up with personal stories and anecdotes, and you'll find those all throughout this book.
Most authors have one specific reason for writing a specific book. What was your reason for writing this book?
My reason for writing this book is my heart for Christian marriage. And this is after all the ups and downs in my life's experience. And I felt a message burning through all of this that speaks to other people and that can help impact them in their marriages and help them through some of the struggles and help them have a oneness relationship with both their spouse and with God.
So based on your experience as a writer, what's the one recommendation you would make to authors just starting out?
Well, funny you should ask, because the main thing that stymies most young authors is writing. And I can say just write. You just write and then you write some more. Outlines are helpful, and I had an outline for this book, but the content still has to be brought out, kind of like a faucet. You have to turn it on and get the first drop before you get the second. So just write that book, and it never starts out perfect. It never rolls smoothly all the way through the end. And you have to get the first chapter written and then write another and another. My book, One Man, One Woman, started as a statement of beliefs. It was 5 tenets, and those 5 tenets became the founding 5 sections of this book. One thing I would like to say about writing, though, is that every chapter that you write should be a standalone. You should be able to take that chapter out, completely out of the book, and look at it, and it should stand alone and make sense. One thing I did in the writing of this book is I had many people read the manuscript, and I didn't need them to read it to necessarily edit things, although people found some pretty embarrassing mistakes in that, and I actually had to wonder if I graduated with English in mind. But when I had them read my manuscript, the most important thing I wanted to know is, could they follow the subject? Could they follow the topic? Did they understand it? And did they fall asleep? So if they were reading my manuscript, I asked them to pencil in a bunch of Z's where they started to snore. And I also asked them to look for the brakes on the highway where you're rolling 70 miles an hour and all of a sudden there's a traffic jam in front of you. even a traffic accident in my writing where the thought flow was lost. And sometimes there was a major wreck. And these were the places I needed to fix, the blind spots as a writer, and people helped me find this. So as you write, it's important to include other people, especially in your target audience, to read and to give you input and to check the flow, make sure they're understanding it.
In your opinion, who should buy your book?
Any married couple, not just any married couple, but all married couples, in particular the married couples that are being challenged, and also any young person considering marriage. Any person, Christian or not, that questions the institution of marriage, that has questions about sexuality, questions about sexual identity, questions about traditional marriage, traditional sex versus alternative sexual exploration.
Do you have a website?
I do. The website is all one word. It's oneman.onewoman.today. That's oneman.onewoman.today.
Could you spell your name for us, please?
Well, if you want to find me on Facebook, the best way to do that is to enter my name, which is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, and the last name is Stellpflug, S-T-E-L-L-P-F-L-U-G, spelled almost like it sounds, Stellpflug.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Craig Stellpflug, and he is the author of One Man, One Woman. Craig, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate this opportunity.
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of The Author Show. Listen to some of your favorite authors every day, 24/7 by visiting theauthorshow.com. Just click on the book title on the player at the top of the page. These interviews are available to book buyers worldwide on demand. If you'd like to be a guest on the show and feel you could benefit by getting in front of your target audience with a high-quality media interview that'll make a real impact, visit theauthorshow.com, fill out the form, and we may be contacting you shortly. You can also visit our audio bookstore at theaudiobookmarket.com. Join us here next time for another great book and another exciting author on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.